You all have a PDF as well. All right, let's start. Okay, so we start with the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal faraj. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة
عليكم السلام ورحمة
Really awesome to see you all. So your topic or the suggested topic for you this Muharram is Surah Al Fajr. I'm gonna go over it with each ayah, but before that, just like to have an overlook or an overview over it. Surah Al Fajr is known as a Surah of Imam Hussein. I know you've got stuff on your building, you've got stuff on your notes, but right now just listen to me and make some notes. In essence, Surah Al Fajr talks about the difference between success as defined by divinity and success as defined by society and human beings. And very often we get pulled. There's a dilemma, there's agitation in between the two. And this surah actually addresses it. So we've divided the surah into 5 parts. And if you look at these 5 parts, the third part is this turbulence and the agitation in the human being, which does not know the difference, or rather is pulled between divine success or success defined as divinity and success defined by society. And that's basically what hopefully we will focus on. Now, what I talk to you is I'm talking to you as adults. You will then dilute this or put it in whatever way you want towards the kids. We've also sent you schemes of work. We've sent you, or rather I've sent them to Shanaz, schemes of work, and you've got worksheets. You can do whatever you want. But right now, I'm talking to you as adults. So the surah is divided into 5 parts. I'll begin again. I know your focus on your building at the moment is similar, but your focus of the whole surah is what is success, divine success versus human success, or if I can say society's success. The 5 parts, the first part is the attempt of the human being to answer the questions of his ruh. You see, the nafs is made up of 2 parts. The nafs, when I say it's made up of 2 parts, the nafs is pulled by 2 parts. It's pulled by the ruh and it's pulled by the body. The body has its needs and the ruh has its needs. It doesn't understand the needs of the ruh, but it's knowing at him. It's telling him there's something missing. So the nafs actually has to manage the 2 and balance the 2. That's why you and I were taught Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. In essence, the first section, which is the 4 oaths, is an attempt by the human being to understand why he or she does not feel successful despite having success in everything else in life. The second bit, or the second section, talks about historic nations. Those who are extremely, extremely successful. Their architecture was phenomenal. They, the people of Ad, the people of Thamud, the people of Fir'aun, their buildings were just amazing. If you got somebody from a third world country into England and they just looked at all the buildings, it's, oh my goodness, oh wow. We go to palaces and we say that. We go to places which are, I don't know, you go to places which are really beautiful. In my age, I'm getting old now, but I tend to go to different places in the world and I see buildings and I think, oh, wow, I see hotels and I see, wow. But at the end of the day, I want to come home. So these historic nations, the architectures were phenomenal, whether it was the people of Ad or Thamud or Fir'aun, but inside it was rotten. There was no peace. The third section is in which we'll focus on when we get to it, is the agitation of the human being that thinks that if he or she has got everything that society calls success, they think they've been successful. But if they don't get it, they think their rub has let them down. And we'll talk about that when we get there. The 4th section is related to the 2nd section, which talks about the failure of these nations, the historic nations who look like they had everything, but really had nothing. And finally, what is true success, or how do you achieve it? And the human being achieves it. So that's just a general overview of the 5 sections. I'll repeat that again. 1 is an attempt, 5 is the result. 2 and 4 go together, and the 3rd is literally the test, the agitation that the human being faces. So I'm going to start off with section 1, which is ayah 1 to 5. There are 4 oaths. Now, when Allah swears, he does not have to swear. He doesn't have to prove that he's truthful. He is truth per se. But he swears to highlight the importance of that particular thing that he's swearing by. Before I go into this, just one thing. If you ask any Shia Muslim, what are the 3 most important days or nights of your life? And they will tell you Laylatul Qadr, Yawmul Arafah, and the day of Ashura. Any Shia. If you ask normal Muslims, they'll tell you Laylatul Qadr. And I say normal, I would say abnormal. But anyway, they will say Laylatul Qadr, and they will say Yawmul Arafah. Okay, we'll come to that in a minute. So now the first section says, Wal Fajr. I swear by Fajr. Fajr literally means to tear something so that light can come through, to explode something so light explodes to it. You know, Fajr is known as sunrise as such, or basically when the night goes and the day comes. But Fajr is literally, if I can put it very generally, it's like having curtains that are blackout curtains and then suddenly opening them. You know how the light hits your eyes. Last week, I had a cataract operation on Wednesday. And on Thursday, I really thought the world was a better place. Everything was so bright. I could see all my husband's wrinkles, which I hadn't seen for many years. Okay. So literally, that is Fajr. It's when it literally just opens everything up. It's an explosion of light. It's phenomenal. Fajr is also, if you look at Qur'an, look at Surah Al-Baqarah, I'm not going to quote all the ayat for you, but when rocks split apart and water comes out, that's called Fajr as well. So Fajr is in essence a splitting or tearing. When I teach children, and they're the only people I know how to talk to, is I take a piece of paper and I tear it. That is Fajr, literally tearing apart so you can see this. Allah says, Wal Fajr. In our case, it's talking about the dawn or the tearing apart of the human being when he realizes, oh my God, there's more to life than what I thought it was. It's not all about what everybody says life is about. So Fajr is that beginning. The time of Fajr is also the time of contemplation. There are 2 sets of angels that change, if I can say, shifts at Fajr. So you have 2 sets of angels at Fajr. Fajr is an important time. I know at the moment it's 2:12 or whatever the time is for Fajr, but to wake up at that time. So when you're talking to your kids, the importance of Fajr, the importance of just getting up and praying is phenomenal. Then walayalin ashr. And walayalin ashr does not say al. There is no al there. So there's no specific 10 nights there. Therefore, the Mufassirin have told us it could either be the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, it could be the 10 nights of the month of Ramadan, or it could be the 10 nights of Muharram. And that's why I told you in the beginning that the 3 days that you will find, the night of Qadr, the day of Arafah, and the day of Ashura, and the night of Ashura, basically. But if you look at this beautiful hadith that you have, if you are not forgiven on Laylatul Qadr, you look for the day of Arafah. If not, then you look for Ashura. And we've got these balanced really well. So he says, I swear by the 10 nights. And you find people, especially us as Shias, we will find our spirituality or try to find our rule in these 3 batches of 10. We'll find them either in the 10 days of Ramadan or the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah or the 10 days of Muharram. It's absolutely phenomenal. I start again. Fajr, an important part of night. 10 days, really, really important. But also remember that historically, when the surah was revealed, the primary audience were the Arabs, for whom there was no, at that time, Ramadan and the 10 nights of Qadr were not there. At that time, the 10 days of Muharram were not there. So their primary concern was Hajj. So you'll find historically, this is talking about the 10 days of the Hijjah. وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. Shaf is known basically as even. Shaf is in 2s. Watr or witr is known as odd numbers or singular. It could refer to many things, but I will choose to pick here the salah that we have as odds and evens. So you have 3 for Maghrib, the others are all even. But in Nafil of Isha, you have 1. I keep on saying, I think we've done A99. Our next topic will be S51. The 51 rakats of salah are extremely important. Now, if the students cannot manage, obviously they'll say, God Almighty, 17, we can barely manage 17. Why are you telling us 51? But surely you'll be able to encourage them to do the 2 rakats after Isha, which is counted as one, and sitting down. And I know as a child, and even now, for me to sit down and pray, my goodness, it reminds me of my grandma. So that's a good nafila to introduce them to. So wash-shafi wal-watr, and some of the mufassirin have said, all creation hinges on duality, and then they rely on one, which is watr. Fair enough. You can look at all that. Salatul Layl begins with shafa and then it goes into witr. And you could bring that in here as well. The importance of reciting Salatul Layl, or you call it Nawaz Shab. And if they cannot recite it just before Fajr, then just before they go to sleep, in their beds, do wudu, recite it. It'll become a habit. And the fourth one is Walayli Ida Yasr. And the night when it walks away. Sarah is to take a walk. When it says Yasr, it's like, how can I put this? It's like really a slow walk. He just walks away without you realizing it's gone away. So Allah is saying, I swear by the night, which walks away when Fajr comes. In other words, it is so scared of light, it just goes away. So ignorance is scared of light. It may refer to Salatul Layl, it may refer to for sehri, for being able to fast. So I'll go over it again. The 4 things that the human being is trying to attempt to come to terms with, because his soul is drawing them to it, is Fajr, an awakening, or the time of Fajr. It's drawing him to these 10 days, 10 of Muharram, 10 of Ramadan, and 10 of Dhul Hijjah. It's drawing him to a shafi wal watr. It's drawing him to the odd and even salah. And obviously, and it's drawing him to Walayli Ida Yasr, the night when it's departing, because it wants this light to come in. I will repeat again. The nafs is pulled by 2 things. It's pulled by the body, which is called jasad, and it's pulled by the ruh, which human beings don't understand. And it's trying to find a balance. At this point, I'm going to tell you a story of the frog and the mouse by Rumi. I love this story. In fact, I should have a frog and a mouse on my table somewhere. So the frog and the mouse were friends. Mouse lived on the land, frog lived in the water. Mouse and frog would talk once a day. But the mouse tells the frog, you know what? I miss you too much during the day. I just need to be able to contact you. And you're in the water and I'm on the earth. And you know what? I just need to contact you. Didn't have mobile phones. So the frog said, okay, but only on urgent occasions, okay? And she said, yeah, absolutely, only when it's urgent. So they tie a string to the frog's leg and the mouse's leg. And every time the mouse wanted to talk to the frog, it would tug at the string. But she tugged so many times and it got so entangled that the mouse and the frog came to the edge of the pond. This is Rumi, by the way, came to the edge of the pond until an eagle came and took the mouse and therefore the frog as well. Now the eagle is the angel of death. The mouse represents the body and the frog represents the ruh. Often the body just comes to the ruh when it wants help. When it wants amals, when it wants duas, and it entangles it so much, the ruh forgets that it is independent. It doesn't need to get entangled into this. So this first part is all about being able to understand what is your ruh and what is your body, and the balance you need to find. It doesn't mean you don't look at your body. It means you balance the two together. Now he says, "Hal fi dhalika qasamun lidhi hijr." In this there is an oath for someone who has, hijr is a stone, who has rock solid intelligence. The Arabs used to call intelligence as hijr, a rock. The reason why they called it a rock was that if you put a big rock on a road, it stops everything else coming through. Because emotions, human emotions and human beings, their needs and everything are a bit crazy, it's only intelligence that is able to resist foolishness. So anybody who says you've got intelligence like a rock, we say in Gujarati, my goodness, in Arab language, that's good. In Gujarati, they say it's not good. But in Arab language, it's good to have rock solid intelligence. Okay, that's why hijr is known as the rock, and so on and so on. So I'll go over the first part again. if you have rock solid intelligence, if you are really clever, then you will understand that there are two sides of your life. There is the dunya and the akhirah. And the only way to be able to understand these two is by your Fajr Salah, is by your 10 days, whether it is of Ramadan or Muharram. I would say all of them, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram, and Ramadan. Then your salah, your basic daily salah, which is odd and even. And then the night when it departs, basically, whether it's talking about your fasting at Sahri or it's talking about your Salatul Layl. Are you good with the first section? Even a grunt will be good. Good. Now, the second section, which is ayah 6 to 14, now talks about those who saw this is society's success. And all of us face this. We run an organization called Cupid under Q Fatima, which does matchmaking. And you find people, when you ask them what they're looking for, they could be a person who has the best of hearts, who has the best of, in inverted brackets, spirituality, morals, everything. But if their vocations are not up to what this person expects, they reject them even before looking at them. And I find that really sad. Because here now you talk about people, Ad, Thamud, and Fir'aun, who looked at the outer, never at the inner. So let's look at them. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi'ad. Do you not see what your Rabb did with Ad? Dara comes from Ru'ya, which is I see. So what did they do? These people were amazing. They build amazing monuments. They were what you would call the most successful people on the earth. Allah says, Irama Dhatil Imad. Now, Iram was an early generation of Ad. It could refer to that. Or Iram actually means something that's made out of rocks. Without the technology that we have today, without the machinery that we had today, they made buildings out of rocks. I don't know whether you've been anywhere near there, but if you've gone to Yemen, you've gone to Arabia, you will see some of the cities that they've left behind. Petra, for example, in Yemen. If you go to these places, you will see the stuff that they've done without the technology they had. They were phenomenal people, and they were also muscular, big, good-looking, rich pastures, everything. But they only see the outside. Now Allah says, you'll never have seen what they did, their military power, their construction ability. It was just phenomenal. Then he said, وَثَمُودَ, and look at the people of Thamud. الَّذِينَ جَابُوا صَخْرَ بِالْوَادِ. They carved out, Sakhr is large rocks, Jabu is to bore through, and Wad is a valley where water flows and settles. Even in mountains and valleys, they made these beautiful homes. So Allah said, look at them. And then وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ, and look at Fir'aun, the possessor of tent pegs. The more tent pegs you had, the bigger your army. So he had a massive army. It could also refer to the fact that he tortured the person he loved the most with pegs because she didn't say he was God. Okay, so it may refer to Asya. But in essence, the more pegs you had means the more tents you have. The more tents you have means a larger army you have. So Allah is saying, you're looking at people who built such beautiful buildings and they had such great military power. الَّذِينَ تَغَوْا فِي الْبِلَادِ. But all these people, they caused chaos in their communities. Everything they had was built on the backs of exploitation. They used other people to build it. They exploited them. In Baghdad today, for example, if you go to Baghdad, it is makruh for you to sleep there because the buildings in Baghdad are built on the blood of Sayyids. The bricks were actually built with blood of Sayyids, right? You don't have to go far today to look at this absolute, this thing. You can see what rebelliousness happens. Now, I'm going to just divert a little bit. I went to the Muslim News Award ceremony a couple of days ago, and what moved me was the ambassador, the Palestinian ambassador. And he actually brought this surah into light because he said, he thanked everyone for being the family that were there, as in people who knew. He said, my country knows that you are there. But he said, I know, and I know for sure that a dawn will come and Palestine will be free, and there will be a dawn. And you know what? Sura Al Fajr just comes up here. So these are people who rebelled, but the problem is they don't see beyond the world. And that is success as put by society, human beings. So what else did they do? فَأَكْثَرُوا فِيهَا الْفَسَادِ. All they did, outwardly, they were super powerful. But inside, there was so much corruption, so much corruption. We're only seeing the corruption of what's happening today now, but it's been happening for years on end. Now, he says, فَصَبَّ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّكَ صَوْتَ عَذَابٍ. Don't worry, time will come when in the English language or in Buddhism, they call it karma. What goes round comes round. What you want to tell the children is whatever you do, it will come round. It's best to do good. He says, Allah says, sabba is to pour. Salt is a leather whip. It basically implies the most feared punishment. Basically, what you do will come back to you. Now, salt is also known as water that smashes into a valley. If you were to break a dam and the water flows, it's called salt. And you could refer that to Fir'aun, how it was the water that killed him, basically, that drowned him. So here Allah is saying, you know what? It's going to come back to you. It's not going to go anywhere else. Inna rabbaka labil mirsad. Your Rabb is watching. Mirsad is when an animal, mainly a lion or a snake or whatever, is just waiting for its prey to come near so it can pounce on it. But here Allah is saying, your Rabb knows exactly what's happening. The idea is to not scare children. Please do not scare them. The idea is to imply that there's always a camera on you. You're always being watched. That's what you want to imply. Please do not scare them. Okay. Now, you could, at this stage, go through the stories of Prophet Hud, Prophet Saleh, and Prophet Musa, because they're historical stories, and it tells you what they did. I know there is some in the book that you've got, and you'll get physical copies as well, but I have some extra bits on those stories. I'm trying to find them, and I'll give them to you, or I'll try and send them to Shanaz, and she'll send them across to you. Okay, now we come to the next section. Now, this is the section that I said you need to focus upon. Okay, so this is the agitation, and I'll show you a way to be able to memorize it and to teach the children. But this is where the agitation of the human being comes in. And this is really the crux of the surah. He says, فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانِ. And so the human being. إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ. When we test him. رَبُّهُ. When your Rabb tests him. Now what does he test him with? فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمَهُ. Akramahu is generosity. Na'amahu is continuous blessing. It's not just an'ama. It's not like an'amta alayhim. This is na'amahu. When your Rabb gives him blessing after blessing after blessing, فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. He says, you know what? I'm entitled to this. My Rabb really loves me. Everything I do is so good. Look at everything. Life is so good, right? The human being is tested with honor and generosity, with ease. And he then goes to say, I'm entitled. So the Khalifas used to say that God gave us our power. The caste system in different South Asian countries say that the caste system is because you were born in such a community. I remember a wedding, a Khoja wedding. And you can quote me if you want. I'm not going to give any names. So I remember a Khoja wedding I went to. I don't like weddings too much because, oh my God, you got to get dressed and then you got to go and then you got to have the same biryani weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend. Okay. So if any of you are going to get married, please don't have biryani. Anyway, so here's we go. Weekend after weekend, there's biryani. So this wedding I went to. And it was difficult, but I knew them very well. And I thought, need to go. So I was going towards the woman to congratulate her on her daughter's wedding. And she was with her, I don't know what they call her, a maid. Do they call them maids these days? I don't know what they call her, a maid, I think. So she had a maid there. And just as I was walking towards her, she said to her maid, please keep the riffraff away from me. I mean, she didn't see me. She was talking about general public. But to me, that was bad. That was really bad. When God granted her the honor of seeing her children getting married, the generosity of having so much wealth, including these maids who were hovering around her. There was a makeup artist and a maid and all the rest of it. She called everybody else riffraff. That is a test from Allah. It really is. For us, we got to understand we're not special. We're not entitled. If we are given something, it's a test to see how we will spend it. In fact, to have is worse than not have. Because when you have, oh my goodness, it's much, much harder to give. Those who don't have will give you much more than those who have. And so to be able to emphasize that a test is not only something where you don't have, a test is also where you have. So this is basically what, by the way, imtihan is no pain, bala is difficult, ibtila is a tough test. The toughest of testing is when you have a lot, because you find it really hard to give it up. It's so hard. Sometimes you'd rather throw it away than give it away. So you can talk all about that, okay? Then he says, wa amma idha mabtalahu. When you rub, again, the same word, idha mabtalahu, same test. But now, faqadara alayhi rizqahu. It didn't say it takes away their risk. Faqadara alayhi rizqahu. Qadar means you get exactly as much as you need. So there's this person who used to have so much, but now Allah is giving him exactly what he needs. So he used to drive a Porsche, and now he has to drive a, I don't know, what's my daughter got? Fiat. I don't know whether that's what sort of car there is. So before he used to wear a Rolex, and now he has to wear a, give me a name, come on, whatever your name is. Before he used to wear Nikes, then he has to wear Primark, okay? Whatever. So for qadra, so a watch is a watch is a watch. Shoes are shoes are shoes. But his rizq has been kept to what he needs. But Yaqulu, he says, Rabbi Ahanan, my Rabb has disgraced me. I must have done something wrong. So he puts together the concept of honor with wealth. And he puts the concept of honor with things. And that is the agitation of the human being. Because society says, if you're wealthy, and if you have this vocation, if you're a suited, booted, and there's nothing wrong in being suited, booted, by the way, I keep on having to add these caveats because you will quote me, right? So if you're suited, booted, and you work in the city, oh my goodness, you're great. But if you are a garbage collector, there's something wrong with you. There isn't. So again, I tell a story, and I'll repeat it again for those who might, you probably heard it, but I'll tell it to you again. So there was a woman crossing the road with her child. And when she was crossing the road, there was a garbage collector, and there was a suited booted guy going to work, and they were standing there crossing the road. As she was crossing the road, a car came really, really fast. And it was the garbage collector or the rubbish collector who ran and pushed the child out of the way, risking his own life. If you had asked anyone before this, who is more successful, they would have told you the suited, booted, Armani watch, Louis Vuitton bag person going to work. But now when they saw this incident, they will tell you no. The most successful is the person who saved the life of that child. So it's really important to understand what this is trying to tell me. Success is not based, and I repeat, it's not based on wealth or the honor that wealth brings you or a vocation brings you. Success is based on something completely different. And that's basically what you will try and use, whatever sort of examples you want to use for the children. So now he says what success is. And it's the same ayah. When he says what success is, he says, look, this is why you're unsuccessful. Kalla balla tukrimuna yatim. You don't even feed the person who has nobody. A yatim is one who's got nobody to love him. You're not even, and it doesn't even say, kalla balla. It doesn't say you do not feed the orphan. It says you don't honor the orphan. You don't see the orphan as somebody who is important to look at. Just like today, Palestinian lives are not as important as other lives. It's as though they're just a number. They don't have anyone to fight for them or talk to them. Yet they probably are the most successful human beings in the eyes of God. So Allah is saying, Kalla balla tukrimuna al-yatim. You know why you're unsuccessful? Even though you have so much, you cannot even honor an orphan, right? It doesn't say give, it doesn't say feed, it just says honor. If you had somebody who had nothing walk in, and then you had somebody who came with their, I don't know, with everything they had, who would you say salam to? If King Charles, is it King Charles now? If King Charles walked in, and then also with him walked in this little guy who was from Somalia or Palestine or wherever, who would you honor most? And you got to put your hand on your heart and really think, who would you say salam to first? We would probably decorate the mosque and have committees waiting for King Charles to come in. And I've got nothing against him, okay? I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I've got nothing against him. But would I decorate the mosque for an orphan? This is what it's trying to tell me. وَلَا تَحَاضُونَ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. It doesn't even say you don't feed the miskin. It says you don't even encourage each other to raise funds for them or to help them out. And who is a miskin? A miskin is not somebody who is poor. That's a wrong translation. I know it's there, but it's taken from the books. A miskin is one who is stuck in a situation and can't find a way out. So, for example, if you had somebody, um, who was I'm trying to work out, say you had a taxi driver, because I met somebody a few months ago. Say you had a taxi driver and his life depended on Uber and taxi driving. And then suddenly he got arthritis in his wrists. And he just couldn't drive his taxi because of the arthritis in his wrists. He is a miskin, because he's stuck in a situation where he can't find a way out to be able to support his family. And the only way you would know about him is if you sat and talked to him, because he's not going to come and tell you, excuse me, I need help. He just won't do that. And one of the things, the beautiful things about Muharram, the beautiful things about Ramadan, and the beautiful things about Salatul Jama'ah is that it puts people together. You can sit down and you can talk to someone and say, how are you? You don't look well today. Can I help? This is what this is about. You can never tell who a miskin is until you talk to them. How would you know? How would you know anything about them? So here, وَلَا تَحَاضُونَ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. You don't sit down and find out about people. You don't go and talk to them. You don't go and see them. So how will you know? وَتَأْكُلُونَ تُرَاثًا أَكْلًا لَمًّا. And it's because you, now, تَأْكُلُونَ, you eat, it uses the word eat. Eat, Allah doesn't say you love. It doesn't say you take. He says eat, because when you eat something, there's nothing left except going to the bathroom. So you eat wealth. Aklan is to devour. Lamma is you don't even care where it came from. The other day, somebody told me, and this is diverting a bit just to get you to understand. They told me that if you look at Pringles, have you seen Pringles? Pringles are not crisps. They're made out of rubbish. But they look so pretty in that little box, right? And you think they're crisps. They're not. But you just devour them because they look nice. They look good. So here he says, you love wealth so much, you devour it without knowing where it comes from. And here, turath is inherited wealth. When I say inherited wealth, it means wealth that is acquired without any effort. You just ate it up. He says, that's the reason why you don't do any of that, because that's what you like. وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. And you love wealth with a hub, is that love. Jamma is to gather, you gather intensely. You look at your bank balances all the time. And if it's not a certain amount, you could have the world and their wives coming to your door, but you're not going to give it to them because you just love it. You know, you say, well, if it's over, maybe if it's over, I don't know, 1 million, then I might give you a bit. But otherwise, I need this for my children and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. I need to keep this for rainy days. How many of you, and I don't want you to tell me, how many of you have jewelry from your wedding that's stuck in a bank box doing nothing? You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. And what are you keeping it for? Your children. They only like Tiffany's. They're not going to wear that rubbish. They really aren't. Yet there are children in the world who are starving. But no, I will keep it. How many of you have clothes that you have kept for years and years and years? Oh, have you ever looked at your lofts? This is what you might ask the children. Is the loft full of things? Oh, those prams that I use for my child, maybe my grandchild, they won't, I promise you. They just won't use it. Those clothes, maybe they won't use it, okay? So this is talking about the reason, the success of a human being in the world, or as society tells you, is to be greedy. Yet Allah says, that's not happening. All right. So now I told you section 4 was related to section 2. What's going to happen? When will they understand? Now, it's really lovely because Allah is really Rahmanur Rahim. He tells you and I from now what's going to happen so we don't fall in this category. He says, Kalla idha dukkatil ardu dakkan dakka. When the earth is pounded and flattened and completely, crushed. You don't have to wait until then. So he says, when the earth is flattened, there's no place to hide because there's no trees, no mountains, no buildings. It's just flat. وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. And he said, what will actually happen is his armies will come row after row after row. My grandchildren like to play hide and seek. And the only way you can play hide and seek, I have 9 of them, by the way. So you can imagine playing hide and seek with 9 of them, okay? You can't hide anywhere. But the only way you can play hide and seek is if you can go behind a door, or you can go behind a wall, or you can go behind a curtain. Now, if you imagine there was no house, just a flat plain, there's nowhere to hide. So Allah says, when there is nowhere to hide, I'm paraphrasing, when there is nowhere to hide, and the angels will come down from the sky, row after row after row, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? وَجِيءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ جَهَنَّمْ. And Jahannam, in essence, the agitation you caused other people will come right in front of you. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَتَذَكَّرُ الْإِنسَانِ. It will be then that the human being will say, وَأَنَّى لَهُ الذِّكْرَ. Will say, oh my goodness. Anna is literally, oh my goodness. In Shakespearean language, it's woe be to me. But you don't say that. So they will say, oh my goodness, what did I do? That's when reality will strike. Now, for him to tell me now means I don't have to wait till then. If reality strikes me now, I can change. Yakulu, and the human being will say, Ya laytani, oh my goodness, qaddamtu li hayati. How I wish. Ya laytani is like crying over spilt milk. Later, that's what it means. So qaddamtu li hayati, I wish I hadn't lived the life that I lived. فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يُعَذِّبُهُ عَذَابَهُ أَحَدٌ. And on that day, what you did will come back. The punishment that you meted out to others will come back to you. وَلَا يُوثِقُ وَثَاقَهُ أَحَدٌ. Now, thaka is like a knot, a really tight knot. What you did will be bound to you, will be knotted to you. So if I can say, it will be written right over you who you are. You will be tied with your crime, or you will be tied with your goodness. Here it talks about crime. Okay, so your CV will be apparent to you, totally you, and you'll be able to see, this is what I was known as. There are lots of people in the world who have done lots of good, but then they may have done something that is really awful and not regretted it or not asked for forgiveness for it. And they're always remembered as being tied to that crime. There was a boxer a long time ago, and he bit somebody's ear. And that's all, whenever I see his face, that's all I can remember. So the human being is always tied to that which he has done, which is horrible, absolutely horrible. If I gave you the name of a leader of a nation just now that is causing so many atrocities, you will tie him to all those atrocities. Yet he may have done good in his life, but all of it's gone. If I said Yazid right now, immediately you think Imam Hussein. Yet there were companions of Imam Hussein who were called Yazid as well. And we think negativity. If I said Abu Bakr, you tied to a person who wasn't good. You don't even like naming your children Abu Bakr, although there's nothing wrong in that name. Imam Ali called one of his sons Uthman because he worked with somebody called Uthman. Yet when we hear Uthman, we shudder because of the atrocities they committed. Even names, we don't like it. So it's really important to understand what this is trying to say. And finally, this is what success is all about. So basically what you want them to do, what you want the children to do, is you want them to go for success, which is the first place, the first section. You want them to know that testing happens with goodness and with difficulties. And then this is where success comes. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna. He didn't say ya nafsul mutma'inna. He could have. Ayyatuha is kind of stressing, emphasizing, dignifies this person. He's saying, oh, the person who is mutma'in. Let me explain mutma'in to you. Mutma'in means to rise. Say your child was going through a tantrum. Say a 2-year-old was having a tantrum in the supermarket. When you calm that child down, is called tamanina. Itminan is when you are able to calm something down. When you are able to be at utter peace despite the, if I can say, the cyclones, the typhoons that are going around you. And we have it right in front of us with the mothers and the children and the people of Palestine. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I watched this grandfather, and you may have got him. I've got his picture on my wall. So this grandfather lost all his wife, his children, his grandchildren, all of them. And he has dedicated his time to spend with the children who have lost limbs. And I watched him on a YouTube video talking to this little girl. She was so sad. And he said, why are you so sad? She said, I love playing football. And now I don't have a leg. How am I going to play football? He said, that's so easy. They'll give you a prosthetic leg. But can you imagine your leg is in Jannah and it's waiting for you? She just smiled. She smiled. That is itminan. That is giving somebody tamanina. Yeah, nafsul mutma'inna. It's phenomenal. It's a nafs that's able to make somebody smile. It's a nafs that not only brings peace to itself, but its very presence brings peace to other people. That's itminan. And I keep on thinking of that grandfather when I think of this. Again, I will try and send a picture to Shanaz, and she'll put it on your group, and you can talk about him, and you can do what you want. Irji'i. Now, you know, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Come back to your Rabb. Don't be scared. It's okay. Irji'i ila rabbiki. Come back to your Rabb. Now, it doesn't really mean just die. It doesn't mean that. It means all that agitation you had about whether you go for success that that society tells you, or success that your Rabb tells you. Just come back to success as your Rabb tells you. Radiyatam mardiyah. You are pleased with his concept of success, and he is pleased with you. That's basically what he's saying. Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatam maradiyah. What are you doing? Human beings may not be pleased with you. When you do stuff, God Almighty, they don't like it at all. They bring about all sorts of whatever. But as long as you know, you can stand on your musalla, put on your hand on your heart and say, I did my best. That's radiyatam maradiyah. Mardiya has a beautiful, beautiful connotation. It's not only Allah is pleased with you, it's the angels are pleased with you, the Prophet is pleased with you, your Imam of your time is pleased with you, all the rest of it. Don't have to worry about human beings. I mean, human beings, they're cyclic. One day they like this, one day they like another thing. One day they like you wearing a scarf like this, one day they want you tied like this, round and round and round. One day they want you to look like a Bahora. They do all stupid things, okay? You do what pleases him. فَادْخُلِي فِي ibadi. Now, he says, enter. I hate using the word servants, although your book says servants. I prefer slave. Because A slave is total submission to its master. Also, servant implies that you may work at certain times and be off at certain times. If you're a servant, then you may work from 9 to 5, and then you're off from 5 onwards. A slave, you're always a slave. And when Allah talks about the Prophet, the highest accolade he gives him is my slave. Surah Al Isra, surah number 17. You've read that surah, right? Subhanalladhi asra bi abdihi. He calls Muhammad his slave. Muhammad Rasulullah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Abdahu wa Rasulahu. You call him Abd, right? So enter into those who are connected to me. I am your master. I will look after you totally. And then obviously, and look at the sequence he says. I'm going to come to it in a minute. Wadkhuli jannati. Enter my Jannah. Now, you can make out Jannah in whatever you want. Normally, success by society starts with Jannah, then Abd, then Radiyatan Mardiyah. They start building all these beautiful things as their Jannah. Then they think, well, you know what? My master is the person who gave me all this money to be able to build it. And then I want him to be happy with me. It's the other way around. Totally other way around. First, Allah, you need him to be happy with you. Secondly, you need to become his abd, and then the Jannah. It's a totally different way of doing things. Okay, so right at the end, there are 4 oaths at the beginning of the surah that were connected to the soul, and you've got that in your book. The Fajr prayers, the advantage of taking advantage of the 10 days, the even and the odd salah, and when the night disappears, it's talking about Salatul Layl and Sari. Now, the way to remember it, or the 5 sections, is the way I remember it anyway. So I write down 5. So if you write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? If you put 1 as attempt, you put 3 as agitation, and you've put 5 as achieve. So you've got 3 A's. You got them? Attempt, agitation, and achieve, right? And in the middle 2 that you've got there, in essence, because A is the highest you can get in life. When you go to school, A+, A, I don't know. We used to have A. I don't know what you have now. Second and fourth, I put F's. So AF, AF, A. The second one is the failure of those nations. And the fourth is the result of that failure, right? So why they failed was because they only looked at the outside. And then the result of their failure was what happened in Qiyamah. Are you good? Even if you remembered AF, AFA, or Afafa, I don't know, whatever you want, you'll remember the 5 sections. Are you good with that? Yes, no, maybe, perhaps? Yes, okay. We can stop the recording and we will go into being able for you to ask any questions that you might have. Good. If you don't have any questions, and if you then think of questions, please come